to thank you, the conference participants, for being here. You know, unlike some of the conferences that we attend, where we'll attend the conference, maybe individually, maybe as small groups, we'll come back and maybe sometimes it's kind of hard to share those good moments and those lessons that we learn with other folks. Well, here at the summit, you know, what we do here is we work with each other, we learn from each other, we agree upon many goals, and we go back to our campuses and our places of work, and we accomplish. And our universities benefit, our students, our faculty, and our staff all benefit, and our society benefits. And so give yourselves, if you would, a big round of applause for the great work that you do. The theme of this year's summit, disruption and innovation, may make some of us a little bit uncomfortable. You know, disruption is typically not something that we seek. In fact, it easily finds us, you know, in our work lives and in our everyday lives. But I think one of the keys for us is that instead of looking at disruption as a problem or as an obstacle, we should consider it an opportunity. The band leader, Duke Ellington, maybe not someone that you associate with energy, but you know, he was a leader. He once said this. He said, "Problems are my springboard to do something." And you know, what you're doing on your campuses is approaching the challenges that we face with energy in an opportunistic way by using them as springboards for creating solutions. We'll talk about many of those solutions and successes at this year's summit. You heard a lot yesterday, you'll hear a lot more today and tomorrow. So we thank you again for coming back to Appalachian to create serious energy solutions and disrupt and innovate our world. And we hope you enjoy your time here and have a productive summit. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Sean Hayes, who will introduce this morning's featured speaker and also have a few remarks of his own. Sean currently serves and was recently named as Executive Director of the Oberlin Project. The Oberlin Project, as Sean described to me this morning, connects college and town into what he calls a commitment to full spectrum sustainability. Previously, he was Facilities Manager and Community Outreach Coordinator of the A.J. Lewis Center at Oberlin College. He's an Indiana native, earned his BA in Psychology from Wabash College, and we're proud of this at Appalachian. He earned his MS in Appropriate Technology from here at Appalachian State University, where he worked with the university's Biofuels Research Group and also worked with our Office of Sustainability. He has his cheering section with him, his wife Katie, and his daughter Amelia, so we're thrilled that you're here with us. And David Orr, I understand David Orr yesterday made a comment to Jim Moody, and he said, "You can't have Sean back." Well, David, don't turn your back, because we might get him. So, but please, if you would, give a warm North Carolina welcome to Sean Hayes.
Thanks, Greg. It is good to be back in North Carolina. It's really great to be back here at Appalachian. So, just wanted to expound a little bit here. I want to, thank Greg for introducing me. And as he said, he got both of my titles. I'm currently doing both of those jobs until we get a new facilities manager hired at the AJLC. So I posted that job in this network, and we've got at least one finalist from App. So I'm really excited about that. So as Greg said, I'm an alumnus of App, and I want to make sure that I get my shout-outs done right now. I want to say hey to everybody in the Department of Technology and Environmental Design, the Geography Department, because I got a GIS certificate while I was here as well, the Appalachian Energy Center, the Biofuels team, the Renewable Energy Initiative, which does really great work here, and is a fantastic example of what you students out there can do with a little bit of initiative. And of course, to the Office of Sustainability, Jed Moody for putting this conference on. So, I don't have much time to talk here, and David wants me to be brief, so I'm going to do that. But I wanted to address the students in particular. As Avery mentioned last night, you have this amazing access as students in this system to professors. And students at any college or university have this access. But what you get out of your education is really you know, it's a multiple of what you put into it. You know, you can coast by and you know, get through, but what you really need to be thinking about is how can I extract every last possible ounce of information out of these people around me. You're going to find it in interesting places, you know, but you need to find that access, you know, be persistent, knock on doors, get to know people, cross those silos, you know, and form the education that you deserve, you know, the education that you want, the education that's going to prepare you to be a leader in an ever-changing and evolving world. So that's faculty members, that's staff, that's the administration, that's student groups. You have access, you have amazing access to funding opportunities if you're willing to find the right person and apply the right pressure. You're all very smart, so you will know what's right and what's wrong. But the other thing I wanted to mention is if you don't see the program that you feel like you deserve, you should create it. The Renewable Energy Initiative here at Appalachian is a great example of that. This is a student-conceived, student-funded, student-run group that put up, is it still the biggest wind turbine in the state of North Carolina? We gotta fix that. It's a really, really amazing accomplishment. I love that wind turbine. We need to put a bigger one up in the state. So count on you to figure out the way to do that. So with all that said, it's really, really great to be back here at Appalachian. And I'm going to get on to my real job here, which is introducing today's speaker. I first met him 3 years ago, just so you all are keeping track. That was 3 years ago, straight out of grad school, that I met David on a job interview to be the facilities manager at the Adam Joseph Lewis Center. So, David Orr is counselor to the president of Oberlin College, and he's a fellow now at the Cleveland Foundation. He is formerly now the Paul Sears Distinguished Professor of Environmental Studies and Politics. He's the author of 7 books. He's the co-editor of 3 others. He's authored over 200 articles, reviews, book chapters, and professional publications. For the past 25 years, he served as the board advisor to 8 foundations and on the board of many organizations, including the Rocky Mountain Institute and the Aldo Leopold Foundation. He is currently a trustee of the Pioneers, the Alliance for a Sustainable Colorado, and the World Watch Institute. He's been awarded 8 honorary degrees and a dozen other awards, including the Lyndhurst Prize, a National Achievement Award from the National Wildlife Federation, and recently he's gotten a Visionary Leadership Award from Second Nature. He's lectured at hundreds of events like this throughout the U.S., Europe, and Asia. He headed the effort to design, fund, and build the Adam Joseph Lewis Center, which I'm very familiar with. It's named recently in 2010 the most important green building of the last 30 years by a poll of green building experts in Architect magazine. And the U.S. Department of Energy named it one of 30 milestone buildings of the 20th century. He is the founder and chair of the board of the Oberlin Project, which is what I'm now doing. So David's also a job creator, in case you are keeping track. And he is the founding editor of the journal Solutions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend and boss, David Orr.
Can't have him back. Just get over it. He's gone. Katie too, Billy. It's great to be here, and especially be with an old friend Avery and meet new friends. I'm going to be as brief as one can be, but the theme of disruption is an intriguing theme. You may think it's going to be a mistake after this talk. I come from a long line of North Carolina preachers. My family goes back in the state to the 1700s. And they were part of the Mecklenburg ruckus back in 1750 or 60 or whatever it was. You may know your American history better than I do. But as with the DNA of a preacher, the old motto of preaching to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable is part of my message. Now, my take-home message has to do with the theme of the conference, and that is very simple. Put energy, your work and energy, whatever you do, put it into a big context. It is the linchpin
of a much bigger conversation that we have to have. That's the take-home message. To start, what I'd like to do is say thank you, first of all, to Sean, who's done a terrific job. You all trained him extremely well, and we benefited from that. And my admiration for Appalachian State was always high. When we went into the stratosphere, we got to know Sean, saw the kind of people that you produce here. Jed Moody, I can't see where you are, but Jed, you've done a fabulous job. Anybody that can put Jed, there you go, all of these people into one room with the president and assistant, that is an amazing piece of work. So thanks for your leadership. And, the other people that have made this event possible. Hayes and Keenan Smith, two alums, you're the kind of alums that institutions really die for. Fred and Alice Standback, thank you for your support to make this possible as an event. Greg, Michael Connor, Jeff Ramsdale, so many of you here. There is so much talent in this room and so much commitment. And I think all of you are really terribly disruptive. So you're already doing what the theme of the program is all about. You all may be arrested. We all may be doing part-time before this is over. Dick Cheney is recording this event. And there are NSA members in the audience. After Amory's talk last night, I changed this talk. I'm not going to say what I had come here to say, but Sean is here to talk about the Orbital Project. Long story short, the phrase full spectrum sustainability simply means that in this little laboratory setting, what we've done at Orbital was, first of all, back in the 90s, the first substantially green building on a U.S. college campus. It is, and again, thanks to the work of Sean, it's gone over the top as being an entirely solar-powered building. Last year, it generated 144% of its energy needs. The year before that was 150%. 2013 will drop a little. 2014 will drop a little bit because of the weather in the north, but we'll be over 100%. And it's a zero discharge building. The standard was drinking water in, drinking water out. And then the question for us, that's a little 14,200 square foot building, and the question was whether we could take that model and take it up to a higher scale. So the Oak project is to take that model into the city of Oakville, a city of 10,000 with a poverty rate of over 28% at or below the poverty line. We're in the heart of the Rust Belt. Detroit is 84 miles away across a straight line, across Lake Erie. Toledo's to our west an hour or so. Youngstown is about an hour and a half to our east. We're Rust Belt. And that used to be the part of the economy that drove this nation. That was the auto and steel industry. So the goal was to take what we learned at the Lewis Center, raise that up to a level of a small city. And the question there becomes, can you power a small city by efficiency and sunlight? Can you make a prosperous economy and a sustainable economy? Can you make a place that joins all the parts of sustainability? We've gone about sustainability in a lot of ways as a series of one-off challenges. So we do sustainable agriculture and energy stuff and building and education and urban renewal and so forth. But all is a series of one-off things. The question for us was, could you begin to join those in a way that the parts reinforce the larger whole, where 2 + 2 is 22. I think we're on the path to do that. We'll open late 2015, the first, I believe it's the first entirely solar-powered hotel and conference center anywhere in the world. And then the next step for us is, can we take that model to a third level? Can we take that up to on the Lake Erie Crescent? So from Flint, Detroit, Toledo, all the way over to Youngstown, Ohio, can we begin to apply that model? And can we use as the driver of that model the power of investment and purchasing by major educational institutions in that region, and also sports teams and hospitals, and redirect part of it. This is a trim tab adjustment. This is nothing new, but trim tab adjustment to redirect investment totaling about $1 billion into smart growth, renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture, local foods. Those are all things going on. So that was the talk I was going to give. I'm not going to do that. But Sean is here. Oh, by the way, you mentioned Solutions Magazine. All of you as subscribers, you do all subscribe to this. Let me see your hands. Oh, folks. We've got some work to do. Your first assignment is subscribe to Solutions. You can do it online. Anyway, it's a magazine. John Todd Paul Hawken and Bob Costanza and I started the current year. This issue has the whole issues on the Oval Project. And I'll leave this with Sean, but you all will repeat after me. I will subscribe to Solution. After Avery's talk, I decided to do a different talk. So I got reported 5 this morning to put this talk together. I'm not giving this one before, so this may be a total disaster. I told Sean I left my car running out here with the door open and a quick exit out here. Avery painted last night an incredibly eloquent and I think an authoritative vision of the future. And what I want to do is to describe, that's the destination. I want to describe the questions that have to do with the itinerary. How do we get there? And I've boiled this into 10 questions. Amory talked about that future after climate has begun to heal. We're not close to that point. And so it raises issues of how we communicate, hard, bad news, and how we communicate, how we motivate, and so forth, and get to that healing point. I noticed in the New York Times this morning, Adam Hochschild, who's a great writer and historian, has a short piece on the outbreak of World War I. And one of the assumptions, this is the 100th-year anniversary of the outbreak of World War I. And one of the assumptions that virtually every national leader had, certainly Kaiser Wilhelm, was that this would be a short, quick war. It'd be easy. And the Kaiser, according to Adam Hochschild, told the troops that you'll be home before the leaves change in the fall. And of course, that was not true. 20 million young men gave their lives on the fields of Flanders and other places. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. They should have known that. There were warnings about what it would be like. The title of this talk is The Road to Montana. And The Road to Montana is taken from Larry McMurtry's book, Lonesome Dove. And I thought, what do I call this piece of disruption and so forth? In Lonesome Dove, Larry McMurtry has these guys sitting around this dusty, hot, desolate town in West Texas. And they want to go to Montana. And so their vision of Montana is green, there's lush, there's water, there's everything that doesn't happen in West Texas. And so they're fantasizing about West Texas, and they don't know the rivers they have to cross, or the struggle and fights with Native Americans that lie ahead, and all the challenges and so forth. So this is titled The Road to Montana, following Larry McMurtry. Then I want to say this again. Your work in energy is the keystone of a conversation about that road to Montana. How do we get there? What do we have to do? What do we have to accomplish? So here goes. This is the human condition. And I love his art. I got a bunch of his postcards and so forth. But if you don't know that's where we are, you know, forget it. Just get over it. That's where we are. We live in a very precarious situation. Don't let it get you down. Marine Corps buddy of mine says that before they go into combat, part of their training is to face the fact that they could lose their lives. And they're told basically, get over it. You could lose your life, but just do your duty. Stay focused on what you have to do. So that's the human condition. Gary Larson. You know, where is Gary Larson when you really need him? This is Gary Larson's view of things. Can all of you in the back see that all right? You in the back row, see this okay? So objects in the air are closer than they appear. And then to be more scholarly or academic about it, Jared Diamond's book, Collapse, says 5 things we want to pay attention to as part of this road to Montana. Societies collapse when they fail to anticipate problems. They're reasoned by false analogies. Just got the wrong metaphors and analogies in their heads. They fail to see problems that are already in front of them. Those slow trends. And we tend to focus on the things that are fast trends. That's headlines. But the slow trends of soil erosion, the literacy rates, and the loss of species, those are easy to overlook. And then they collapse when they fail to solve problems that we have. Garrett Hardin's essay on tragedy of the commons, or the work on groupthink and denial. We live in a society that does a lot of group thinking and in a lot of ways is very badly denial. Societies collapse when we can't solve problems, what Thomas Homer Dixon calls an ingenuity gap. They're simply too big to solve. And so we simply fail because we got ourselves in a mess. Or overwhelmed by complexity, what many years ago a futurist called a crisis of crises. It isn't one thing, it's lots of things. And for the reasons Amy described last night, they tend to be interlocked. Joseph Taylor, the great historian of collapse in societies, talks about the fact that societies sometimes collapse when the ratio of creative energy, that disruptive energy that you all are about and represent, to maintenance begins to shift dramatically toward maintenance and away from creativity. And then they fail when elites simply abandon ship and walk away. And one of the issues now is that simply the lack of empathy in a society that tends to overlook, when elites begin to overlook major problems. So here are my 10 questions, 10 issues. And the first is simply whether we have the will and the wit to survive. And this is a little bit like what I'm going to describe. It's a little bit like remember those quadratic equations you did in high school math? You had to solve a series of components to get to the right answer on the right side of the equals mark. That's where we are. The graphic on the screen here is one taken from Nature magazine. Nature is the British counterpart to American Science. And what they did was this. They looked at a whole series of variables. So think of this as something like the dashboard, the cockpit of an airplane. So you have a series of different things. And the circle here in the center is the safe space that we have. As long as we stay in that circle, we're okay. So that's this space right here. Is this not working? I guess it doesn't work over the projection. But the green space on the screen is the safe space. The red is the problems getting out of control. The farther out they go, the worse it is. Climate change, the one at the very top, pointed to 12 noon, is probably in that space. You could argue it's a little bit further along at 400 and some parts per million now. But the issue that we face, and this goes back to Henry's point, this is David Archer, a quote. The point of the quote, David Archer is a geophysicist, used to be at the University of Chicago. The point is that the carbon we put in the atmosphere stays there a long time. And I want to make a distinction around this word solve problems. If the problem we address is can you power this campus or this city or the United States or the global economy by renewable energy and efficiency, the answer clearly is yes. We can do that. I think the evidence is large part because what Amory's done in the years, but also NREL, many of you in this room, many organizations and so forth. We know that efficiency can eliminate about half of the energy we currently use, probably at a net profit. That's the work of McKinsey Global and lots of other agencies. But if you change the issue, and can we get carbon out of the atmosphere, that isn't solvable in the same way by any known technology or anything present on the environment. Carbon weathers out of the atmosphere much more slowly. So the carbon, when I fly back to Ohio this afternoon, the carbon I'm going to leave behind is some portion of that, maybe 20, 22%, will be in the atmosphere 10,000 years from now. And it will continue to disrupt ecologies and ecosystems and weather patterns and so forth for the length of that time. Now, that's just the fact. People say, well, that's awfully depressing. Well, yes, it is. And the issue then raises another issue I'll get back to in just a minute, how to communicate this. But if you're not depressed by things that are genuinely depressing, I find that depressing. Tautological. Just suck it up. We've got to face the fact we created now a real mess. We have got a long journey, something that resembles Amory's vision last night. So what do we say about our predicament? Now this is tough. I do not have an answer for this. I'm just going to lay out some of the options. One option is this one. This is the Booth cartoon that was in New Yorker probably, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. And the parishioners are chasing Reverend Millstone out of the service. And then if you look closely at the cartoon, what he has down the right-hand side is the church billboard. And Reverend Clayton Millstone was preaching on, "Are we all prostitutes?" You know, I found that funnier than you do. you know, we don't respond. Let me go back and we just start this over. So, Reverend Millstone's service was memorable but not a happy one. At any rate, this is one way to deal with the problem. And are we in deep trouble? Yeah. Are we implicated in this? Yes. And the issue is for us is we're not destroying the planet because of our failures. We're destroying it because of our successes. You know, we're joined by the Bible to be fruitful and multiply. Well, by God, we've done that. We started out with a few people in Africa. Now we're up to 7.2 billion people. We'll peak sometime, maybe around 10 billion by mid-century, a little bit later. So here's Gary Larson's take on this. Maybe there are some things we would recommend in this communication strategy that are simply irrelevant. So Larson's message here from Emma, from his belly. But it's just irrelevant. I mean, as far as you know, Fred's concerned here, it just doesn't work. And then there is this one. Do you remember the movie A Few Good Men? Jack Nicholson is on the stand, and Tom Cruise, the young JAG attorney, is throwing a Hail Mary pass. There's been a murder on the base that Nicholson, in this role, the Marine Corps Commandant, was charge of, and Nicholson's losing the case, Cruise is losing the case. And so he throws a Hail Mary pass, and he finally gets Nicholson to admit the problem. And he wins the case. You remember that line? It's one of the great moments in American cinematography, you know. You can't handle the truth. Remember that? He does it better than I do, but he's Jack Nicholson. I'm just But there's a few different. And T.S. Eliot's take on this was humankind can't bear much reality. That's his point for important. On the other hand, Winston Churchill on the screen. Churchill, bombs falling on London. It doesn't go on BBC and say to the British people, you know, this is a absolutely wonderful time for urban renewal. We can finally build the city, the London that Christopher Wren wanted us to build back in the 17th century. He doesn't say that. He says, I have nothing to offer you but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Now, the question is, what do we tell them? And I frankly don't know. This requires a good bit of psychology. And the point of this is, I'm not arguing a viewpoint here. Maybe we don't tell the truth to the public. Maybe we keep it to ourselves. Maybe we have a communication strategy that talks about opportunities and so forth and so on, which has a hollow ring if you happen to be caught in one of the islands about to go under because of sea level rise, or you're caught in a famine because of long drought, a climate change-driven drought in Africa or in central USA. But this raises an issue, how we communicate, and I'm no expert in that. But the point here is that this ought to be part of a large conversation. This should be a big conversation. And so members of psychology departments ought to be in gatherings like this to talk to you. How do you communicate? How do you tell the truth without paralyzing? And that was Avery's point last night. And frankly, I don't know. I suspect that if you get cancer or have a heart problem and so forth, you want the doctor to tell you the truth. Does the same work at the scale of a society? I don't know. But I think it takes leadership of a considerable sort to be able to tell the truth. When Abraham Lincoln was asked about slavery, his answer wasn't to describe it as an economic problem for slaveholders. He didn't say, well, you know, if they just put more machinery there, you can make more money, because it's, you know. No, he said, if slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. And so he put it in a moral context. He simply told the truth. What do we do about climate change? What do we do about this long journey to Montana? How do we tell it's going to take some? There's going to be some casualties on the way. There's going to be some bad news in between. I don't have an opinion about that, frankly, but we have to face the issue. Here's the third problem, or third question. There is a old Islamic tale that goes back to Return of the Millennium. It's called The Tale of the Jinn. And in the tale, animals are given voice and sentience. And they're in what we would now call the jury box. And as humans, they're in the dock. It's us on trial. And the animals have to decide whether we stay or whether we go. And so the eagles and the snakes and the turtles and the fishes are all there in the jury box, and they have voice, they have sentience, and it's their choice about whether we stay or go. At Oberlin, where our students are all very progressive and suffer advanced states of angst in many cases, I have offered this as a subject for discussion and for possible papers in my intro course in environmental studies years back. They would automatically conclude, no, humans don't deserve to survive. We're evil, we gotta go. And that's just part of their Presbyterian makeup. Although they're not Presbyterian, most of them never darken the door of church anyway. But, and then you think about it for a while. We're the race that figured out where we have a problem. We're the first species to have to show, as far as we know, interspecies compassion. We're the first species to understand how the universe works and how we got into this situation. We had Mozart, Beethoven, Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa. I mean, so then they make a more complicated case. Now, the point of this is this. To get to Montana, how do we know that we deserve to arrive in that paradise? And if Abraham Lincoln were here, he would put it something like this. If we knew why we deserve to be sustained on Earth, we would know better how to go about it. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
This is a point we have, do we deserve to survive? In fact, we want to survive, be sustained, is in some ways irrelevant, but do we deserve it? And if we thought that we did, we'd be better equipped to actually be sustained. There's a third or fourth issue here. What kind of economy? The economy has run us into a ditch, the way it's presently conceived. This is not an argument for or against capitalism. I think we'll probably will have capitalism as long as we have civilization, and we need some way to incentivize people to do good things. But the difficulty is this. You can read the screen. I'm not going to read the screen. I'm doing the worst possible thing you can do with PowerPoint. Have people read slides. It's a terrible thing to do. But anyway, the first item tells the tale. The laws of the economy started, or said to have started, with Adam Smith, who wrote Wealth of Nations in 1776. But the laws of the way the planet works are 3.8 billion years old. So we compare 238 years of, quote, the laws of economics with 3.8 billion years of the way the Earth has worked as a physical system. And trying to calibrate those two has proved to be difficult. How do we begin to get long-term pricing in, or what Amory Lovins has called prices that tell the truth? The fact is, our prices don't tell the truth. We're pushing a bow rate of debt into the future. We're pushing climate change and the cost of biotic impoverishment and acidic oceans and so forth off onto the future, and so we cast a long shadow. In the last point I make in this sequence, we need a new kind of economy. And what that is, I won't pretend to say that I know, because I don't. Here's a fifth issue. We've gotten into this mess, I think, not solely because of the economy. It was the largest market failure in history, according to Lord Stern. But climate change is also, before that, it was a failure of governance. The first warning given to and given by the U.S. President on climate change was given by Lyndon Johnson, both to and from, in 1965. We still have no de jure in climate policy. In the past life, 10 years after that, in 1976, was a small part of Jimmy Carter's transition team. And Carter wanted a paper on the most important environmental issues the administration would face, and so I got assigned to do that. And for that paper, I called Amory Lovins in, and Herman Daly, and Eugene Odom, the founder of modern ecology, and 8 or 10 other people, and we assembled what was called the Wolf Creek Statement. That statement still reads well. That was 1976. We still do not have a de jure climate policy. This is a major issue of governance. And part of the issue is the very privileged position corporations have. In 1886, the Santa Clara County decision, which is said to have given corporations legal personhood. You and I are persons, we can be in one place at one time, we die, our assets are limited, we are moral creatures, and so forth. Corporations are no such thing. And that's not an argument against or for corporations, but they're a very different kind of entity. They're an abstraction. And so, because of that decision, it's something that the public, I think, accepted and still reluctantly does. But it creates some problems for us. And so, all the way down to Citizens United, which privileges the corporate role in giving in campaigns, which is creating difficulty for us. The suspicion about corporations goes back to Thomas Jefferson. It comes through all of our history. This happened to be Abraham Lincoln's misgivings about it in 1864. He saw corporations selling tainted blankets and defective weapons to Union armies in the Civil War. And then there's this issue of wealth. We're said to be a democracy, and it's very easy, as Plato and Aristotle told us a long time ago, for democracies to slide into something else, and various kinds of tyranny. One of those forms of tyranny is oligarchy, or plutocracy. And in this country, if you look at the very, very top, the 1/10 of 1%, you get in this room alone 400 people that have more net wealth than the bottom 185 million. That's not an argument for socialism, it's just simply to say that you can't run a democracy if wealth is that concentrated. And the same thing is happening at the global scale. And then our political dialogue, for reasons that you would know as well as I do, has shifted dramatically to the right. I grew up as an Eisenhower Republican in western Pennsylvania. But Eisenhower would not even be, he wouldn't even be a Democrat in today's parlance. Things have shifted so far to the right. And the future, whatever it is, we have to figure out how to get past left and right, liberal and conservative, to something that begins to ally ourselves with the interests of the future. We need people in the political arena who don't think of liberal and conservative. We need both. And it's a perfectly good, valid position to be a conservative, real conservative. Libertarian is a little bit different. And liberal. Both wonderful words, flip sides of the same coin. And at any time in your life, you'll be liberal on some issues, conservative on others. We're a mixed bag. We are not one or the other. But some people make a lot of money by confusing us about this. We've got to begin to move to a very different kind of politics where we think of the present and the future, not right and left. And then, as George Orwell told us, we need to restore the integrity of public words. The words patriotism. What does that mean from your perspective? What should it mean? If we take America at its very best, what does it mean to be patriotic relative to species and to land and air quality and the rights of future generations? What's a patriot? And we confuse that with gun-toting and all kinds of things that fit this macho image of America that has done so much damage. And what's real conservatism? Edmund Burke, the founder of modern conservatism, in a wonderful book, Reflections on the Revolution in France, written in 1790, talks about us in the present generation being midway between a distant past and a distant future. We're trustees. And our job, as he put it, was to pass on an entailed inheritance, which meant governments and institutions and cultural things and libraries and all the apparatus of civilization on from our generation to those yet to follow. And liberalism has been an open, innovative attitude. When you talk about being disruptive, that's a liberal view of things. Conservatism is a very different view, but we need both. And we need people who are conservatives and say, wait a minute, hold on, do the math, think about this a little bit more. And people who are liberals and say, hey, we can do better, we can invent something better. We need both. Those are not different dialogues, they're part of one dialogue. And how did government become a bad word? Government is where you and I say us and ours, and we talk about the future. The market's where we say I, me, and mine. And we need both of those. We're both consumers and citizens of the economy. We're also citizens of this public entity. How did government become a bad word? It's where we do our public business and public service and working in government, and rights and responsibilities. And how did taxation become a bad word? Oliver Wendell Holmes told us a long time ago, the great Supreme Court Justice, that taxes are the price you pay for civilization. And they need to be assembled fairly, they need to do things that otherwise can't happen in the market, and they need to be put to good use. We know that. And then, is it possible? I put this slide first a long time ago, many years ago, in front of Avery Lovins. He was sitting right in front row, and he nodded his head up and down. But is it possible that we could have a solar-powered, hyper-efficient, energy-efficient, sustainable, but fascist society? That possibility lurks behind us. It is not a small possibility. If you were to ask me, is that where we're headed? I think that probably is where we're headed. We've allowed our political system to go to weeds, and we suffer this dysfunctional government, and it's government, as we're told over and over again, is broken. Well, let's fix it. If your car's broken, you fix it. If the train's broken, you fix it. And we can fix government too. Here's the sixth question. This gets into, one person started applauding, the rest of you just sat on your hands. But I'm not going to. Here's another question. we've become, I think, technological fundamentalists in lots of ways. We know what religious fundamentalism looks like, and it can have a scary presence in our lives. But here's a question of technology. This is the cover of the article mentioned last night by Bill Joy. This is the Wire magazine cover from April 2000. And in this article, Bill Joy, again, was the founder of Sun Microsystems. No lie, one of the smartest people you could ever possibly meet. Fabulously successful, a great technology entrepreneur. Bill Joy called in this article for a moratorium on anything, any device we make that could self-replicate. So artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and nanotechnologies were three he picked out. He called for a moratorium on those right away. Now, whatever your opinion about that is, we should have talked about that. And that's what I said last night at the panel, that should have been the occasion. The chancellors and college and university presidents should have said, here, wait, time out. We have a very smart person giving us a warning. He wasn't the first. It won't be the last. But if something can self-replicate, and it grows and passes that point to sentience, where it can begin to think, and we're at that point. I ran into Bill Joy a couple years ago and asked him on the street, and I asked him how far we had come to the future, the nightmare that we had foreseen in this article in 2000. He said, oh, we've already passed the point, we're already there. I don't know if that's true or not, but these are the kind of things that you see. We're developing robots and smart machines. They don't look like humans. We're getting much better at making the faces of these things look like lovable little creatures that we like to be around. But the issue is this. Norbert Wiener is one of the great mathematicians and one of the great figures of American science in the 20th century. Said we must face the fact that every degree of independence we give the machine is a degree of possible defiance of our wishes. The genie in the bottle will unwillingly go back in the bottle. Nor have we any reason to expect him to be well disposed to us. So, I said last night, I'll just repeat this, 3 ways to lose our grip on the planet. One is to destroy the planet in a nuclear holocaust. The second is to destroy the planet's ecological systems, and that's climate change and the environmental movement. The third is to get ourselves evicted from the planet. This issue doesn't even appear in our dialogue. We're so mesmerized by technology and our smartphones and so forth. I think it's a problem. There's an 8th question here. What kind of intelligence do we need to get to Montana? Not just the technologies we take with us, but what do we need? Subject of education came up yesterday in several different ways. This was another Booth cartoon, and I thought it was about as good a way to describe higher education as I could think of. You're not laughing, is it? Did you all party too long last night? Yeah, I see a lot of heads go down. Anyway, the discipline-centric kind of curriculum, Henry talked about it, and Tom Ross talked about it. We need people who can think past this mailbox pigeon. We need you people, young people still in schools, and faculty members and administrators. Let's make education wild and crazy. Let's knock down the barriers and open the doors and windows. Let's have a big conversation. Now, here's part of the difficulty. And this is part of the honesty, and again, I don't know how to communicate this. I just want to lay it out there because I think it's true. If we're coming out of the Holocene, that's the central brackets on the screen. And the Holocene is the era in which we became what we become. So in the Holocene, that past 10 or 12,000 year interlude, the climate was abnormally stable, much more so than it had been for a good bit of Earth history. That's the era in which we did everything we've done. That was our poetry, our art, our music, our culture, everything we've done, our ups and our downs as civilization. We're now told that we've entered what is being called the Anthropocene, which is simply, the big complicated word, it simply says that we're now the drivers on the planet. And the fact is, on the right-hand side of the screen, a good bit of the planet, as experienced by young people, will be a much more capricious, hotter, buggier, stormier, more ecologically and biologically threadbare place. On the left side of the screen will be the temptation, or I try to represent the temptation to retreat into this world of virtual reality, smartphones, and all the things that we can do. And think about this. Virtual reality, there are no bugs, you can climb mountains, you get into a sensation simulator, and you can sit in a room and you can visually climb mountains or go pet grizzly bears and go out and take a stroll around the lake and never leave the room. It's television on steroids. And so that's the world we're now moving toward. And the price of that world, I think is this. This is Richard Lou's book, The Last Child of Woods. That's the back picture of my grandson, who's now 14. I just like that picture of it. But that's a world in which young people will find it harder and less attractive and less easy to go into the natural world. This is what we're headed into. It's a world where you've all seen this. You've all seen little kids with electronic stuff in front of them, iPads and so forth. They're learning something. They're very fast learners at that young age. E.O. Wilson put it this way in one of his great books. E.O. Wilson's the great Harvard biologist, probably the most famous biologist since Charles Darwin. Can the psychic thread of life on Earth be snapped without eventually fatal consequences? And the consequences, I think, would be measured as the loss of affection for the natural world, which is changing dramatically, and the loss of confidence in what remains of the natural world. And then on this intelligence, I want to stick in Thomas Jefferson's quote here: if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Education is critically important. What we do here is part of that bonding to the natural world. When we get to Montana, we will have to keep our loyalties through the deserts and across the rivers and under some very difficult circumstances. And then Albert Einstein's quote: I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. I don't want to read this slide. This is from one of the bright lights in philosophy, Mary Midgley, a British philosopher now in her 90s, wrote a whole raft of wonderful books. And she always, reading Mary Midgley, she reminds me of my grandma, you know, the kind of slight pot belly and an apron with a wooden spoon in her hand. She said, well, now, David, you know, be smarter than that. And then she writes like Wendell Berry, the great Kentucky writer. So if you look for a philosopher, Mary Midgley, a whole raft of books. But Mary Midgley in this talks about why smartness is never enough. Amory alluded to this last night. We need a different kind of intelligence. And so in my experience as a teacher, a lot of times my C students were better in some ways than the A students. The A students went off to become lawyers and so forth, and they did things very quickly. They crammed for a test and get an A the next morning, and the C students have to mull things over. We need that mulling over kind of intelligence. People who can sit there and take a complicated problem, remember quadratic equation, and they can work their way through a tough moral issue with lots of different dimensions, exactly what Avery was talking about last night. Then for you students out there, there's this issue of what do you do with yourself? And that's kind of the ultimate question. And you're at a great place. You have great mentors here at Appalachian State. And from wherever you go, the North Carolina system is a great university system. It's one of the real jewels in higher education in the United States. But here's what's taking place. The roughly $1.2 trillion of student debt, a big number, now rests on your shoulders. I think that's part of what drives these two trend lines. And the two trend lines are simply the dissociation of young people that come into college and want a great philosophy of life and want to do good in the world, and those people who want to make a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. But what's happened is we've dissociated the idea of having a calling, that used to be called a calling, with high values in philosophy and making money. And I think part of the issue is that we saddle students with so much debt that they have to go out and make a lot of money. Education ought to be as close to free as it possibly could be. And I don't mean just for students. I mean there ought to be a sabbatical year for plumbers and people who work in the insurance industry. We ought to begin to see education very differently. Now, since you responded to that, let me say this. Wouldn't it be something if we said to everybody, you get a semester off for whatever you do, we'll pay for it, public expense. You go to a college, university of your choice. Do anything you want, take whatever courses you want, and we'll pay for that. Think of the infusion of ideas, and creativity, and innovation, and the increase in morale in the public. And instead, we make life hard, we fight over minimum wages and all kinds of things, but we ought to be able to invest in intellect and in spirit in this country. But imagine people here in Watauga County and throughout Western North Carolina coming back here for a course. Whoever they are, whatever degree they have, they don't have to be able to get into a college. They have to just be able to get here and sit in a class. Or it could be Shakespeare or energy technology or whatever, or anything in between. On the screen, Thomas Burton, the Trappist monk, one of the great people in American religious history in the 20th century, one of the great writers on religious subjects. He wrote his memoirs. His memoirs were called Seven Story Mountain. And as a Columbia University graduate, he was asked by the journal of the Columbia University Alumni Magazine to write about how success, what made him a success, and so forth. His answer was to students, be anything you like, be madmen, drunks, and bastards. Remember, this is the Trappist one. Bastards of every shape and form at all costs avoid one thing, success. And of course, what he was writing about was success as we typically measure, making a lot of money and doing all this kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with making money, but it's purpose. Money is a means, not the end. And sometimes we lose sight of means and ends. But what he was calling for students to be anything you like, but be yourself. Find a life, a career, get a calling before you have a career. Imagine, if you think this is a horse and a wagon. The horse, the thing that pulls the wagon, is your sense of what you are in the world. That's your calling. That's why you're here. That's my Presbyterian upbringing. We use that word a lot. And then the wagon is the thing that you do. That's your career. And I know way too many people at my age or younger who have been successful in a career, but they didn't have a calling. And think of it. And people like friends of Avery and I have a mutual friend, Ray Anderson, who's a great businessman, the founder of Interface Carpet Corporation. Ray, in 1995, had a successful corporation, made a lot of money, was famous, and was the largest carpet tile manufacturer in the world. Didn't have a calling. And then he wrote a book by Paul Hawken, The Commerce, The Ecology of Commerce, and began to see his business in a very different way. He got his calling and his career connected. He became the best example I think I knew of somebody in business, making money, but then putting it all to good purpose. And there's lots more beyond him. And then my last question on this road to Montana is this. What about those who make the journey after us? Will there be a Montana for them? This is the U.S. Constitution preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings, liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Ordained and established this Constitution of the United States of America. Now, if you go back to 1789, they could never have envisioned that what would happen on this continent would be what it has become. The ups and downs of it. Nor could they envision mountaintop removal. They could not envision climate change, that we would eventually change the climate, acidify oceans, all the things that we've done. They could not imagine we would cast a long shadow on posterity, but we have. And now, future generations have literally no legal standing. And we give standing to people who died. We honor their wills, we honor their memories, and so forth in lots of ways. We give no legal standing to those generations to follow us. We need lawyers now to come in and take up this battle on this road to Montana. This isn't a one-time trip. There'll be lots of people who want to get to Montana in their future. And those future generations that would live in Montana, need protection. Now, let me close with some thoughts. This, again, is one of the most famous cartoons ever. This is an equation, and then a miracle occurs. Amory was talking last night about a miracle. And we need to think in miraculous terms. His vision was so eloquent, so wonderful, and I believe in it fervently. But making it happen is going to require us to dig deeper, think more broadly, love and cherish more effectively. And so this is part of what we have to do. With Amory, he's been the most, I've known Amory for 40 years, he's been the most clear-headed. He sometimes cites scripture, faith. There is faith, hope, and as he puts it, clarity. And I like that. And I don't know a clearer head of anybody who thinks analytically than Amory Lovelace. And this is a capsule summary of what I think Amory is, the gift that Amory has made to all of us. Smart solutions. They don't cause other problems. So his comment last night about parachuting cats, good solutions don't create more problems. Solutions create solutions. That means they have to solve for pattern. That means they have to solve for complex quadratic equation. When I get to Montana, you've got to answer a lot of questions. And then they have to be technically feasible. Things that you all wrestle with here. They've got to be doable sorts of things. They've got to be competitive economically, and increasingly that means the amount of carbon released per dollar spent. And so that means, and that's actually pretty good news, because increasingly what we do, what you're doing technologically is cost competitive. We deployed 3 megawatt solar array in Oakland a couple years ago. That's the output side, actually, higher than 3 megawatts, rated at 2.27. The point is that was done as a power purchase agreement, and the numbers penciled out to our board of trustees. That was a couple years ago. The numbers would be better now than it would be, and better 2 years from now than it would be presently. It can be deployed quickly. This climate crisis that we're in doesn't allow us any procrastination. When Avery closed last night and said we have just enough time. No more. No time for sideways mover, no time for big mistakes. We have just enough time to get to Montana. And then it's got to be resilient and redundant and repairable. And the best description I know of resilience is what Avery and Hunter Lovins wrote back in 1981 or 82 in a book called Brittle Power, chapter 13. It's online, go see it. And then I hope, a couple of concluding thoughts, I hope that this world ahead, when we get to Montana, and I believe that we get there, is a world where we have deep affection for our places. I do worry about that psychic thread being cut. And affections for places like North Carolina, and the Great Mountains of North Carolina, these wonderful wild places that we still have, that we have affection. George Sturt, the quote at the top, was an old English wheelwright. He wrote a book called The Wheelwright Shop. It's still in print from Cambridge University Press. Brilliant book. And there he talks about the age-long effort of Englishmen to fit themselves close, and ever closer into England. Change the word America or change it to Tanzania or any country. And that is the affection and bonds between us and the places in which we live. Kennet Hawks, one of the great archaeologists in England, wrote about a patient and increasingly skillful love-making that had persuaded the land to flourish. Every town in England, every rural locality had its special products and skills, its delicacies and local dishes. And we get to Montana, that's the kind of affection and confidence we have to demonstrate. 2 last thoughts. Tom Berry was one of my heroes. North Carolinian, author of a raft of good books. Toward the end of his life, he wrote a book called The Great War. And every generation has its great work. The Civil War generation had its great work, and a lot of young men went and fought and died in places that had names like Shiloh and Gettysburg and so forth. World War II, the greatest generation, went to places like the Battle of the Bulge and Iwo Jima. They had great work to do. Our great work is very straightforward. It is, first of all, we have to stabilize and introduce heat-trapping gases. That's the point of energy efficiency of the solar revolution. We have to make a transition, and we have to make it very rapid. We have to create now, we're not an island. The U.S. is part of the global world. We have to have a global bargain, some kind of survival agreement. And that means our 22 tons of carbon per person per year in this country have to go down very close to 2. And there's no army that can help us do that. There's no navy. There's no military power that can make us do that. That's a bargain. We'll have to strike with people in China and India and Europe and elsewhere. And we have to rethink our philosophy. And this is why this is a big conversation. We need something that begins to resemble this precautionary principle. We need to stop and look and listen, as he used to say, go changes. We need something like humility and fairness between and within generations and between ourselves and our co-passengers on this little threatened planet called Earth. And that's a different philosophy, and that's one that engages philosophy and psychology and technology, every discipline in the college and university curriculum. Howard and Martha Howard, before they died, Howard was Eugene's brother, 2 brilliant people, wrote a book called The Prosperous Way Down. I wish I hadn't used the word down. But we need a less resource-intensive view of prosperity. That's the new economy. We've been sold a pig in a poke that we thought that the more we had somehow, the better we would be or whatever, and that simply is not true. Consumption, we know this happiness doesn't come from what you have, it comes from what you do. It comes from friends and purpose and so forth. And then we need to rethink politics as some kind of trusteeship. If we're going to go from here to Montana, we'll have to organize the way we make our decisions, and the way we set our journeys, and the way we decide to share risks and opportunities and benefits, the costs and benefits of getting to Montana. We need a different way to do public business, and that is beginning to bubble up. It's coming up from the bottom up. We need to think about how we do our business, not only as consumers, but as citizens of this enterprise and members of this journey. Let me close with Martin Luther King. Time is very short. I don't know anybody that said any better than King did. This is one of the great state papers. This is the fierce urgency of the now speech. He toward the end of that long and extremely eloquent speech. He says, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare and naked and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide that carries a man doesn't remain in the flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in our passage, but time is deaf to every plea, and it rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. Thank you for doing what you do. We're not going to be too late. We will get to Montana. Thanks for making that journey.
Wow. Jed, that was a mean trick. Good morning. I'm David Goswick. I'm the CEO of House, and I have the distinct pleasure of moderating the industry panel this morning. When Jed and Randy Gonzalez played this trick on me, they said, we'll have a great discussion about how the industry is impacting the sustainability space, and he talked it up, got us all excited, and then he dropped it on us that we were following David Orr. And after yesterday, it's a great privilege. So thank you very much. And I'm going to share a little bit about House very briefly, and then introduce our guest on the industry panel. In 2010, we started House with a very, very lofty and ambitious vision to really impact lives. And as we evaluated where would we concentrate our focus, we felt like it would be smart to do the hard stuff early on. So we wanted to concentrate on revitalizing communities. And what does that mean, and how do we use energy to really stimulate change? And so we looked all over the United States. We didn't really have an idea that we needed to do it in our backyard, but when we came across this community in Houston, Texas, in the oil and gas capital, this community had been neglected for 60 years. The name of it is Independence. We thought, this is a good location. So this is the historic town hall for Independence Heights that happens to be the first African-American municipality in the state of Texas. So the next thought was, how do we create a living lab that looks like a home? And let's do the hard things on very, very small buildings. So we felt like a 1,400 square foot home, if we were to make mistakes on it, it'd be smart to do it on a small home. And we felt like, from an architectural standpoint, just to demonstrate to the world that it could be a home that looks like it could fit on almost any street across the United States. So we selected an arts and crafts style home. But the performance criteria is what really sets it apart. We wanted to build a smarter and safer and stronger and zero energy home. And what does that really mean? We also knew that in order to really change the paradigm, we needed to have a team of leaders. So we reached out to the city of Houston, felt like a public-private partnership was in order. Mayor Parker and Laura Spangen, the Director of Sustainability of the City of Houston, really stepped up. And it's counterintuitive to think of the City of Houston as being a leader in sustainability, but Laura Spangen came to Houston from San Francisco, and she's doing some pretty amazing things. But we also knew that we had to have the involvement of industry, and we needed to do some bold things. And what we found here is this community didn't even have cable access, it didn't have fiber optics, it wasn't a level playing field for the 4,000 residents that live in Independence Heights. So we had a contract in hand to team with Apple and to disrupt this community and to innovate within this community. And then right as we evaluated the contract, we thought, you know what, I think there's something else. And so we reached out to AT&T and said, come with us, we need fiber optics, we need your technology, we need the collaboration of some of your partners. And they said, well, thanks, but no thanks, we're going to introduce in Atlanta and Dallas. So I sent a letter, and I always say this is a little disruptive. I sent a letter to them and I said, this is a career killer for somebody. Houston, Texas has the most housing starts. Let's move it to Houston. About 2 months later, they contacted me and said, we've selected housing, we've selected Houston, Texas for this launch. Education, huge piece of this. I mean, this is a community that, again, had been neglected. The students didn't have access to the same tools that other students had. So we felt like we had to really get involved in the community and impact the school system. What happened is, with a little bit of hope and a rethinking strategy, the community took it on to itself and created what they call Zero Energy Week. And it meant a little something different to each group along the way. Elementary school all the way through to STEM high school. Quickly we found through a lot of news media and attention that we were overwhelmed with opportunities. The challenge became there were opportunities, industry partners wanting to team with House and Independence Heights. And so we reached out to the National Renewable Energy Lab and said, we'd like to propose a new, only of its kind partnership agreement. We need you guys to measure everything for us. We need you to vet things out. So last February, we executed a first of its kind partnership agreement with NREL to help us evaluate and measure and be truthful to ourselves. Make sure that it's accurate. So we are building, that red dot, we're building a smart lab home on the NREL campus in 2015 that we will measure everything. And I point that out because this is really about disruption and innovation and collaboration. So with NREL, we said, let's go do the hard stuff. Let's go do it early on. And NREL said, well, why don't we partner and create a network of 20 living laboratories that are zero energy homes and partner with universities. But let's make sure that we cover every climate zone. And let's make sure that we measure everything, every component within the home. So sensors that measure everything from indoor air quality to the energy performance of each component. So the result is that we are building 20 zero energy living laboratories in partnership with 20 universities covering every climate zone. And we believe that the market opportunity, and it's the market opportunity for students that today are in elementary school and also in college, that the opportunity is to make every single home a zero energy home, new and existing. multiple trillion-dollar opportunity to reshape everything. And I think that the market-driven component of this is hugely important. Amber touched on it, David touched on it, Dr. Ross touched on it yesterday, but what a great opportunity for us to transform and make huge progress. So we would like to launch this program and introduce it here at Appalachian State. We have a lot of very, very prestigious we have a lot of prestigious universities involved, but the UNC system and what started with meeting Jed Moody at the Rocky Mountain Institute's eLab Accelerator lives on today. And I'd like to point one other thing out. Jed and the Rocky Mountain Institute really disrupted our world a lot because we were focused an awful lot on natural gas and how that may fit into things. And so awareness is a scary thing because once you really become aware, you're aware. And so Jed started talking about renewable and the difference and the Rocky Mountain Institute, and I'm like putting my hands over my ears at first, and the more I listen, the more I realize that this is transformative and it's the right thing to do. And so now when we talk about natural gas, let's talk about biogas. Let's talk about innovation. And let's talk about disruption. To our team at House, I explained, our job is to disrupt whatever we're previously thinking. So with, I'd like to introduce next David Klee with Johnson Controls, the Director of Optimized Building Solutions, and I've asked David to first tell us what is Johnson Controls saying out there that's really, really challenging, and what is Johnson Controls doing to disrupt things, and what are your competitors doing to disrupt things? So one of the first thoughts is that this collaboration, I call it co-opetition, because companies that compete now need to work together. So David, with that.
We'll see how good my AV skills are today. Okay, good enough. And for my next trick, so good morning everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. And thank you, David, for that opening. The project in Independence Heights is a perfect example of what Avery Lovins was talking about last night with Applied Hope. So hopefully I'll give you another application of Applied Hope with discussion around optimization. And optimization is a word that's misused, abused in many ways in the industry today. So what I hope to do is kind of clarify what that might mean to you, either as a student or as a building owner operator, and talk about some applications of how to use optimization within a facility. So I am the Director of Optimized Building Solutions, so what I'd like to say is I've got the best job in the company. I get to look at all the things that Johnson Controls does, from manufacturing chillers, to installing control systems, to servicing those systems, and figure out how to put those things together, those capabilities together to make 1 + 1 = 3, so to speak. So with that, we'll begin with a little bit of humor. We see optimization as really an evolution. You know, back from the days when Warren Johnson, the founder of Johnson Controls, invented the electric thermostat, we've evolved quite a bit into pneumatic systems, and then DDC. That was a disruptive technology, a very innovative one, that drove a lot of positive change in the industry. And now DDC systems, direct digital control systems, are standard. They're expected. They're the norm. So what's next? Right? We have efficient components, chillers, boilers, pumps, cooling towers, and we're reaching the theoretical limits of what's possible efficiency-wise. with those. So that leads us obviously to this next step of optimization, making those components work better, work optimally together. So that's what we're talking about here today. And industry bodies like ASHRAE and AHRI that you've likely heard of are acknowledging this. They've really beat up equipment manufacturers over the last couple decades and said, you need to make your components more efficient. Manufacturers have responded, and now, for better or worse, everybody makes an efficient chiller. Everybody has similar technology on boilers, pumps, cooling towers again. So that creates a burning platform for manufacturers and service providers and software providers in the industry today to capitalize on. Either you'll fall off your platform or you'll leap to the next one. And optimization is that next leap, right? So what are we going to do about it? Well, if you ask a mathematician will say, well, it's just math. By quadratic equations, right? Fairly simple. And when you look at a visual, it looks a lot like modeling a system of components, a network of components that are working together, exchanging fluid, exchanging heat, exchanging whatever. And they say, well, you can model that, and you can plot that. You can pull up MATLAB, and you can see the shape of that problem, literally. And what you want to do is, if you want to minimize the energy consumption, for example, you just design your equation to minimize the energy consumption. In other words, think of it as a marble in a bowl. You want to get that marble to sit at the very, very bottom of that bowl. And when that marble is stationary and sitting right there, you've solved that optimization problem. So to a mathematician, it's simple, okay? But then when you try to introduce that to the industry, that's where the real challenge lies. So as David said, he asked us, well, what are your challenges? You know, you've got disruption, you've got innovation. What are the challenges? Well, taking this concept and bringing it to the industry is quite challenging. Because you go to the industry, and we're used to automation, making things run, making things work automatically, perhaps even without human intervention. That's what DDC did in the 1980s with this movement of energy management. And you go to some automation contractors, and you may say, well, we want to put an optimized system in. And they may say, well, that's what we do every day. We make buildings work. We make them work efficiently. But then that's when you'll be able to say, no, we want to do something different. We want to apply some mathematical rigor. We want to apply some smart software to automation to not just run the building, but run it right to minimize some function, minimize energy costs, minimize energy, reduce carbon footprint, CO2 emissions, whatever your problem is that math can solve. We want to bring that to the building and solve it. And automation still plays a critical role. It does two things, really. Number one, it pulls data from the system. There's vast amounts of data in this building flowing through the wires. But what do you do with it? Feed it to an algorithm with a mathematical model in it to analyze it, and then send some recommendations back to the automation system for execution. That's what optimization does. So it's not just automation anymore. Think of it as an additional layer of intelligence on top of the building. Automation system that doesn't just run it, it runs it right, runs it properly, runs it optimally. And when you do that, then you really realize the performance of the system. So this is kind of what it looks like. If you take an example of a chiller plant, and Bob, our colleague up here, will tell you about a wonderful project they did in Atlantic City next, but it was in a chiller plant. So for those of you who may not have been in a chiller plant before, this is kind of what it looks like. You have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of big, heavy equipment, a lot of piping, a lot of wiring, a lot of spinning motors and pumps that really exist to just get BTUs out of the building. So when you start to learn about this and understand it, it starts to look like a Rube Goldberg invention. But that's what we have, and they're on this campus and many others around the state and country. But you have pumps and towers and chillers, and they're all there to get BTUs out of the building. And what we like to do is make that a more rich problem for the optimization solution. So let's put variable speed drives on those motors. Let's give them the ability to speed up and slow down, which feels fairly obvious as a step to take, but it honestly hasn't been for a long, long time. Let's put variable speed drives on, give the optimization many degrees of freedom to do a lot of things to really get that marble in the bottom of the cereal bowl. right, to find that optimal operating point, that sweet spot. So it's not just about meeting the load. Yes, we have to meet the load. Yes, we have to keep the people in this auditorium cool. But how do we do that with a minimum amount of power or the minimum cost, right? Because let's be true, it's all about money, not necessarily just energy, okay? So there are a few different ways of doing that, and traditionally, it's been a set it and forget it approach. You select efficient components, you put them in, you automate them, you've got your warranty period, and then you're good to go, right? No, your challenge has just begun, because performance drifts, inevitably. Always, it will drift, unless you do something about it. So traditionally, what we've done is we've said, well, let's recommission every 2 years. So your performance drifts up, it gets worse, you retro-commission, spend some money, and then what happens? Same thing. So you get this sawtooth effect. It's a definition of insanity. So what does the owner really want? They want a plant that's put in and runs efficiently and stays at that efficiency, and maybe even improves its efficiency over time by some learning algorithms. That's all possible. That's all out there today. So I'm going to accelerate through this just a little bit. So what owners really want, what operators of plants really want, is systems to perform at their peak efficiency persistently over time, okay? And to do that, you really need three things. It's a proverbial three-legged stool. If it takes more points than three to explain something, you're probably overcomplicating it. So, number one, you need to be able to predict it. We should be able to tell you exactly how your plant or your system, whatever that is going to perform. Number two, we should be able to implement it the same way every time, repeat it and scale it. Lather, rinse, repeat, just like on the shampoo bottle, right? And then, last but not least, as I just talked about, you need some sort of a performance management program. Data everywhere, right? But what do you do with it? Take it, analyze it, run fault detection and diagnostics on it. Make sure that the operators of that facility understand what's going on with that facility, and that they can leverage that data to take action. So actionable information, not just data. And when you have all three of those things in place, a good business case and prediction, a solid implementation, and a good performance management program, that is the recipe, that is the formula for a successful optimization project. So here's an example of one, and this is a plot of kW per ton, kilowatts per ton of refrigeration in a data center for a Fortune 50 IT company in upstate New York. And if you see here, you see two lines, a red line and a blue line. The red line indicates the pre-retrofit, pre-optimization kilowatts per ton. The blue line represents the post-retrofit kW per ton. And you notice a distinct difference right around 9 a.m. This is a 24-hour period. Prior to 9 a.m., the optimization had been turned off. Why? Third shift, hadn't been trained. They didn't have transparency, they didn't understand it, so people fear what they don't understand, so they turned off the optimization. First shift showed up, made their rounds, got their coffee, pulled up the dashboards, that they saw the information, and they took action. They turned it back on. And immediately, as immediately happens in a system of this scale, they started saving energy again. And you see that blue line drop down. So in other words, overnight, the team that was in charge of the building overnight consumed about twice as much power as they needed to run that facility, because they turned the optimization off. Not necessarily their fault. They hadn't been trained, they hadn't been empowered to feel like they were in control of it. So there's an important human element to this as well that we often don't talk about. But training and transparency are very important to an optimization project. So I'm going to quickly run through a case study that really talks about the next generation of optimization. We had a client come to us and they were building a new central energy facility. And they have chillers, boilers, heat pump chillers, a device that does both heating and cooling at the same time, and of course all the pumping and heat rejection equipment as well. And their objectives were to minimize cost. And they said very bluntly, we don't care if it consumes more energy, we want to minimize our cost. They wanted a predictive approach, not real time. They didn't want to just see what's happening now and then make responsive actions. They wanted to forecast. Because we know our weather, Our utility will tell us 24 hours in advance what our utility rates will be for the following day, and they vary with the time of day. And we also know what our loads are historically, so we've got a model for that. So we've got all the data, we've got all the information. That should be able to feed some math to deliver recommendations to the automation system for how to dispatch that equipment, how to run that plant. So that's exactly what we did. We developed a predictive optimization solution that leverages that data, and that's rich data, that's valuable data. And with that, we were able to achieve the peak performance of that system and minimize not just their electric consumption, but also their gas consumption. And the really cool thing about once you've modeled that, it becomes not just an operational tool, but a planning tool to run what-if scenarios. Well, what if our load changes? What if we bring another building on the campus loop? What if our weather pattern changes? What if the utility plays with our rate structure? What do we do? How much budget do we need to ask for? How much more? Should we add a chiller? Should we run our plant differently? Do we need to shut down the boiler? Et cetera, et cetera. So, interestingly, the client, a major university in Palo Alto, out west, was very interested not just in the operating tool, but they were thrilled about this planning tool because it allowed them to run these scenarios and really own their future rather than being a victim of it. And I'll tell you, as a point of pride, this system was designed by an engineer here in the state of North Carolina, affiliated engineers out of Chapel Hill. Just to accelerate and allow my colleagues some additional time, I'll spare you the details of how it works, but just know that an operating plan is built and updated every 15 minutes, so that for a 24-hour, 36-hour, 48-hour window, the operating team knows exactly what's going to be on and what's going to be off and how fast the motors are going to be spinning at any moment of the day going into the future. And as new information comes in that's updated, that model adjusts and then sends new updated recommendations to the automation system for execution. So, key differences here with this solution that's separated from most other solutions, nearly all solutions I'll say on the market today, is that it's predictive and it's focused around cost, not just energy. Leverages thermal storage, leverages variable utility rates, leverages complexity, leverages data to really drive down cost. And at the end, what you get are these really neat plots of energy consumption. You can see it's like a graduated and demoted flat top, so to speak, a haircut. We tell the optimization, hey, don't go above this demand because that's bad and costs us lots of money, so that the software does exactly that, meets the load with the minimum possible cost. And at the end of the day, when you see that the system run, it's really pretty cool. You see the black line, which is the actual load requirement, and then you see the thermal storage and the heat pump chillers and the chillers all working together to meet that load with the minimum possible pump. So of course we're filling those cold water tanks at night when power's cheap, draining them during the afternoon when power's expensive, and only running mechanical cooling when we have to. So that's the essence of how it works. And keep in mind that there are synergies all over the place. When you look at systems, I focused on chiller systems here. There are other systems that relate to it. The boiler plant, the air side. You could use your building, the thermal mass of your building, as a heat sink and a heat source, depending on the season. And if you're lucky enough to have thermal energy storage in place, wow, that's a powerful opportunity, especially in a situation with varying utility rates. And demand response, of course, plays into this equation as well. So very exciting stuff, lots more opportunity for those of you who embrace the disruption to innovate and add value and bring value to your organizations. So with that, I will close out and hand it over to Bob, who comes to us from Pepco Energy Service.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Albertini. I'm from Pepco Energy Services. I'm the Director of Plant Management there. And thank you. This is an awesome conference so far. I've never been to one with as much brain power. And again, we have to it's amateur hour now after those great presentations we had last night and earlier this morning. But I want to take what David talked to you about central plant optimization and show you more of a case study and go into some nuts and bolts of a project that we implemented at one of our plants. Pepco Energy Services is a wholly owned subsidiary of Pepco Holdings, and energy is our core business. We've done about 70 or about 400 projects, 8 North Carolina projects, 2 phases here at App State, and you know, our goal is to help customers reduce energy costs, reduce their carbon footprints. We're headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, primarily an East Coast company, and we serve primarily institutional markets, and that's primarily a money reason because institutional markets are generally can access financing and credit at better rates and more efficiently than some commercial industrial customers, and our projects tend to be long-term and require financing, so that's the reason we're focused on the institutional markets. Getting into our lines of business, as I mentioned, we perform self-funding energy efficiency projects for our clients, and some examples of that are some projects we've done here, two phases here at App State, implementing geothermal, heat pumps, solar. We've done a lot of air side efficiency projects. Again, our projects are self-funding. We usually implement them through an energy saving performance contract, bring financing to the table for our customers. That's one of kind of our higher level or traditional line of business. An area of I'd say our expertise, or another kind of a subset of that, is distributed generation. And until about 4 months ago, I headed up our business development team for cogeneration, CHP. And we have a number of projects we've done in the CHP world. We operate a 23 megawatt project at National Institutes of Health. We're doing a really cool project at DC Water that could be the topic of a completely different conversation or presentation, where it's a 14 megawatt biogas cogeneration project. It's tacked onto the end of a brand new process that DC Water is implementing. It's called the CAMBI process, and it creates less hazardous biosolids that can be land applied. It's not non-hazardous waste. In any case, I didn't think that would be a good topic for this audience because I don't see very many huge wastewater treatment plants on campuses at this scale. So thought we'd focus today on another line of business of ours, which is district energy and on-site central utility systems. Now, we own and operate a couple district energy plants, and one is in Midtown Thermal in Atlantic City, another we have a small one in Wilmington, Delaware. And I'll give you a little description of this is all, believe me, this is all leading up to a disruption, so we'll get there, and an innovation. Our Atlantic City plant is the Midtown Thermal Control Center up in the very top there. That's kind of the heart of the system. We serve 7 casinos throughout the waterfront there. One of the unique aspects or challenges of operating this plant is the distribution system is affected by the tidal flow. So it's very high maintenance, and a few years ago we had a major failure and had one of the parking lots filled with temporary chillers. It was on the July 4th weekend, which you can imagine is a pretty busy weekend in Atlantic City. We kept everyone cool, it was funny, the casinos, they didn't care about the hotel rooms, they just wanted to make sure the gaming floors were nice and cool. There's 4 miles of steam and chilled water piping, fiber optics throughout the facility. We have energy transfer stations at the casinos for steam and chilled water. And the plant was built in 1998, so we've had, and we're in the middle of, we're toward the end actually of a number of long-term contracts with our clients. So we've been trying to become more cost-effective. In 2012, we put a cogeneration plant in the plant, which provides nearly all of the necessary electricity. In fact, in the wintertime, we can sell into the grid when the load's a little lower. The cogen plant primarily has almost completely offset the boiler plant because it provides all the steam load. But the real issue and driving cost there was the chiller plant, because Atlantic City, it's hot and humid, their peak times in the summertime. The operators were directed to provide chilled water at all costs, no matter what. And as David had suggested, and if they don't understand, they have kind of their method of doing things, and we're seeing some rather high costs for our chilled water plant. So the disruption that we saw a few years ago is as casinos have become more and more commonplace throughout near the nearby area. Philadelphia has a number of them, Maryland, New York. People were staying closer to home and not traveling to Atlantic City, so it's putting pressure on our customers. We were seeing electricity prices going up, and in our case, we were at the kind of tail end of these 20-year energy delivery contracts, so we could see them on the horizon. We knew that we had to, get more competitive and get, re-up these contracts. So our project goals were to reduce our cost of goods sold. We have a plant manager there who thinks in terms of, came from industry, thinks in terms of everything is in a cost of goods sold. So his goal is to drive the costs out of this plant. Our corporate mandate was to reduce our carbon footprint, and clearly you can accomplish hopefully all that through improving your operation efficiency. So the innovation was undertaking a chilled water optimization project, which was the first ever simulation and model-driven control district energy plan. We, as David, explained very eloquently, and I'm going to just, keep things rolling here. The optimization is really an algorithm that he showed you. It gets that marble to the bottom of the bowl of operations. And at the heart of the software is this algorithm that's computing all possible chiller, pump, cooling tower, sequencing permutations, modified flows, set points, and load limits. And these calculations find that optimum way of running everything. And the goal is to optimize the system, not each individual components. So the steps we undertook, kind of a 5-step process. The first step, and David called it the automation or the plant control system. We had a 15-year-old plant control system in there that was being manually operated. So we realized that the optimization algorithm needs a good foundation to run the plant. So we installed and upgraded a new PCS system in 2012. Another issue for us with a 15-year-old plant that had changed ownership and the old management team was there was this corporate knowledge. We had to go out and just do data gathering, model pump curves. I measure and verify all the equipment in the plant because we had to know how everything operated in order to feed it into the algorithm. So that was a huge effort. And again, over a 12-month period, we were able to do that. And then also, as David mentioned, you know, it seems obvious, but in order to control these pumps and motors and big pieces of machinery that are constant speed, you want to be able to vary the speed on them, so we installed VFDs. So really, these first three steps are kind of creating the foundation on which to apply the optimization algorithm and modeling program. Then we had to do our system integration. We worked with a company called Kiltech, and they did modeling and algorithm creation. The integration coordinates the PCS and the optimization database. We had to test the algorithm. We manually drove the plant with and without it. To David's point about training the operators, we had a number of holdouts, you know, who had been operating the plant for a long time and really didn't believe that this newfangled, computerized, mathematically driven system could do better than they could. So we challenged them. We said, okay, here you go, take over controls. And you know, nothing proves it out better than them watching the line of their KW per ton go higher and higher and higher as they're trying to scramble and figure out why they can't keep it where the optimization program would do it. So we were able to you know, win over the whole team actually. And one of the benefits of having the system in place operating the plant is now our guys can focus more on preventative and predictive maintenance, which is also an output of information out of the system. So they're spending less time sitting behind controls and more time out the plant, ensuring things that are operating properly out there. So, what are the project results? This is pretty good stuff in our opinion. The project cost was about $1.7 million. We did earn a $500,000 utility rebate from the local utility. But what's really awesome is the KW per ton reduction in the environmental results. We're on track to reduce our KW per ton by 25%, saving almost 10 million kilowatt hours a year. We're at 9 million kilowatt hours per year. Our cost of goods sold reduction was about $500,000, 25%. Without the utility rebate, we're at a 3.3-year payback. With the utility rebate, I think we were under 2 or 2. You can see the environmental results up there. The awesome thing about these optimization projects is it's not hugely capital intensive. It's just using the equipment you have in your plant better, and again, driving the whole system to work effectively and efficiently together, not each individual component. So there's a lot of applicability to campus type chiller plants. We're currently working on a NASA project up in Beltsville, Maryland. Is going to be doing the same thing. We have the same team on that. We know that Clemson University in South Carolina has put out an RFP for a chiller optimization plant for their central plant. So it is applicable. That's why we felt it would be a good topic to bring to this, summit. Probably all heard about it, but I wanted to show you a real-life example of where it's applied. And something that we're pretty proud of is just this past February, we were awarded an innovation award, of all things, at the International District Energy Association for this project. So, kind of the proof's in the pudding. The chiller plant optimization really works, and it's a great, should have great applicability to campus settings. So, thank you very much for your attention. I want to introduce Chris Halpin. He's the president of Celtic Energy. We've been working with Celtic here for the past 5 years on the projects we've been implementing at App State.
philosopher John Cleese said, now be something completely different. So, it's really hard following people like David and Amory, as they said earlier. But it's a joy for me to be able to get up here and speak to everybody. Yeah? Okay, great. And talking about these technologies, for me, is wonderful. And it's great to see so much innovation going on in our little tiny niche of the world. But I think in order for us to get to the world that Amy was speaking about, and the methodology that David so eloquently spoke about, we need to get the brain power and the policies that enable things like Facebook and Groupon and Uber into chillwater plant optimization and central combined heat and power and solar. If we do that, we take 10% of the effort that's put into the apps that we put on our phone every day, put them into this kind of stuff, we'll get there. We'll reach Montana. And I'm glad that we're all in a space and industry where we do have a calling, and we're able to make money, or enough money to get by. And I have 2 sons in college right now as well, so I know all about that. So I want to run through some of the stuff pretty quickly. A little bit about us. We've been around since 2000. I started the company after working for an ESCO, and I've been in this business for 30 years, and I started to see that perhaps things weren't always being done as collaboratively as they could be, and we'd see a lot of great technologies and great innovations, but we just couldn't put the business deal together. So I started a company that was really aimed at working with large institutions and large contractors and vendors and providers, and trying to sort of marry the two so that at the end of the day, we had deals that worked, saved carbon. Back then, when I started all this, climate change wasn't really even in the daily lexicon of people, but saving money always is. And so that's one of the reasons I started the company. We have Maggie, who's a wonderful colleague right here in North Carolina. We're up in Connecticut. We have a few people who fill the places around the country. Our sort of main thing is on large alternative finance projects, mainly performance contracts these days. We do the technical due diligence and sort of the marriage counseling sometimes to be able to get these institutions together. And it's a really interesting space to be in. We also do a lot of measurement verification expertise, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all this, but we do all kinds of interesting things and really like to be involved in the leading edge, which is what this is all about. And again, hats off to Jed and the rest of the crew here at App State, because this is just an amazing thing. Again, I've been in this since 1985. Been to lots of conferences with a lot of other middle-aged white guys like me. It gets a little boring, to be perfectly honest. And I love to see something like this where we have every walk of life in this room, all for the same cause. If you could export this to the rest of the university systems, that would be a way to really kick things up a notch here in North Carolina. So we've done work on 10 different campuses, which has really been amazing for us. We're doing work in a few other places. Another interesting one we're working on right now is at FBI. We were selected by the FBI to manage a project for them at Quantico, where they have the academy and the famous lab that's in all the CSI shows and stuff, and it really is a truly amazing place. We're going from 0 to awarded contract in 6 months. And this is a highly secure facility, as you probably would imagine. I mean, the background checks and all we had to go through here, but it was pretty intense. And that would just be escort. It takes 9 months to get a clearance to be unescorted on this campus. And it's surrounded by a Marine Corps base, right? So it's a double win. But if that can get done at FBI, that can get done at any institution, I don't care where you are. We've done this in small K through 12 schools out in Nevada. 6 months it took to develop the project and sign the deal, because everybody was on the same page. And this is one of the reasons why. William Butler Yeats, also an Irishman, he's not English. Education is the filling the pail, is not the filling the pail, but the lighting of a torch. And really, that goes back to exactly what we are all here for. I want to pass this torch to my sons, to those of you students in the audience, because honestly, I'm getting tired. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and we need to get other younger people, people from all walks of life, all colors of the human palette involved in this industry. And I want to really salute the leadership here. You're really setting a national example. Again, I've been at this a long, long time, and I've rarely seen any organization, and I used to work at big Fortune 500 company and so on, and lots of silos, or as Len Hoy calls them, cylinders of excellence, which I love that word. And to come here, honestly, I mean, I love seeing Amory and Dave speak and getting together with all you folks. Almost my favorite part is seeing the students get up here and speak. I cannot tell you how inspired I was. The kid that figured out, using his phone, how to optimize the placement of bike racks on a campus, I was like, hello, can we do more of this, please, and stop fighting over terms and conditions on contracts? I mean, that's really where we need to go in this business. So, and again, I'm not going to read all that, but the last one, it's a tall order, and I think we're up for it. We really all have to get onto the same page, and we need to be a lot less territorial about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think a lot of it is educating for the future, and I can never do as eloquently as Amory and David were speaking about it last night and this morning, but more student involvement, more educational, or greater educational now, really creating living labs. And I basically put ourselves out there last year when we were saying, on our next project that we start, we're going to get students involved in a very integral way. We haven't started any new ones in North Carolina, but we're starting at a Grambling State University in Louisiana, and we're starting at University of New Haven in Connecticut, where we're sharing student interns with the university. We're paying them partially, the university's paying them partially to help do their carbon footprinting on their campus, to help Energy Star benchmark their buildings, and then we're going to teach them how to implement real projects on their campuses. And where I want to see this going is, the technology innovation is great. Our gentleman here spoke about. This is such cool stuff. I mean, I'm an engineer. I love this. You can live and sleep it. But we got to change the business processes. That's what's really going to get this stuff to go. Maggie Horse says, we've been doing energy audits since 1985. And for a lot of them, they're sitting on shelves. They're like beautiful operas that have never been heard, right? We need more operas to be sung. We need more of these projects to go forward. And one way I think of doing that is getting students to be more interdisciplinary, like Amory urged us to be last year, in certain ways, like getting STEM students to shadow folks like us and the ESCOs, and like the guys on the stage who are around, to see how these projects really are analyzed. How are they figured out? I mean, what really goes into these numbers? Applying those thermodynamics classes, things that we learned. We also want to see business and policy students getting involved in this. It goes back to, I'm a mechanical engineer, I hire mostly mechanical engineers, but boy, some of us are really not good at explaining what we do. And if you can't do that, it's a non-starter for the most part. And at the end of the day, we want to create students who are going to get out of school with not only an idea of how to get away from that cross that David showed, right? We want to get to the calling. We have to be able to make enough money to pay for student loans and get a decent car and a nice apartment and so on. But we have to do it in a way that they're going to come out of school with a highly marketable skill, right? Not just their certificate from the university, but things that they know they can go to a Pepco or a Johnson and work on a chiller water optimization plant from day one and provide value. And usually it takes, I've hired a lot of engineers in my career, it takes a couple of years to get to that point. We need to accelerate that. If we're ever going to reach Montana, right, we have to hit the accelerator pretty hard. Another thing I'd like to see is engineers that can sell alternative financing, right? I mean, that's just an example. There's lots of ways of crossing these different things. Business students who can herd a team's efforts, and it's like herding cats in a lot of cases, right? There are a lot of different cylinders of excellence that we need to align towards sustainability programs that are infinitely sustainable. Like we're talking about, retrocommissioning a chill water plant is great, but you have to do it every 3 to 5 years. Getting LEED certification is great, but you have to do it every 5 years. Well, let's make these projects go so they're constantly being optimized. Continuous commissioning, things like that. And not only from the technology, from the people who work on the projects and the systems that are in place, the checks and balances, and at the end of the day, the payments. The payments have all got to go towards this so people are made whole in business as well as on the environmental side. And as a little cheeky esteemed philosopher, Stephen Colbert says, we need to get policy people away from, this is what some guy told me, so I think it's great, to this is real basic science and how it actually works. Instead of what, Stephen Colbert says it the best way, this truthiness. It's kind of right, it's kind of accurate, but not really, right? And we're going through this right now with fracking and a bunch of other things in the energy markets, and there's a lot of it that really needs to be explained more clearly. And one of the things after talking here the past few days with folks, again, I have a degree in engineering. I started an MBA, never finished it. I started my own company, realized I didn't really need an MBA after starting my own company. But boy, could I have used a psychology or a counseling degree. I tell you, that would have been the most helpful thing out there. And I try to tell my sons that same thing, but of course I'm just their father. They don't really listen to me very often. And again, I'm not going to read all this. One of the things I thought that was really interesting about what Dr. Ross said last night about piloting, right? People think of pilots as, jet fighter pilots and all this. No, piloting comes from the guys you would hire to bring your tanker into port that had, $20 million worth of oil in it. And it had to get away from the shoals and the riptides and all that. And it's small universities, small institutions, small clients who can, in some cases, really innovate. We see this in LED lighting. Cree was talking about the way they started. They were a tiny, tiny company when they started. Most of the best LED suppliers out there are tiny companies because they innovate constantly. The big guys still have to worry about the millions of teeny lamps they have out there in this space. So I think the smaller institutions can really help be the voting point lighthouse out there. One of the things that was talked about last year, which we thought was really interesting, is that there wasn't really the blend of skills. And I already talked about it, I won't beat that dead horse, but in today's world, you have to be, in order to really run facilities, and some of the guys here at App State are, I think, sort of the quintessential examples of this, where they're great engineers, they're great facilities people, but they understand IT, and they get things done. I mean, I've seen that at a few of the other campuses here, and a few other clients of ours, but that's really where you need to be. You need to be the guy that can both understand how the chiller works and how the IT works to optimize that chiller. Because without that, it's not going to work. Another problem we see out there is building energy modeling, right? We've been involved in projects where you have the energy modelers who are fantastic scientists, really, but they don't know the buildings. They've never been to the buildings they're modeling. For me, that's like, trying to buy a $1,000 dress or suit without trying it on. How is that going to work? If you have to be one of the 400 that David talked about, it doesn't matter. You have your assistant go out, they have your measurements, they buy it for you. If you lose the $1,000, it's not that big a deal. Most of us are not in that top 400. So why should we be doing that with building loan? And again, I'm not going to read all this stuff, but renewable energy and really new business models, goods and services is what it's all about. One of the applications we see in this is performance contracting. And there's ways to do it right, there's ways to not do it very well. Just like any sort of design build, you can end up with build design that doesn't work. Properly done performance contracting can give you all kinds of things like this. And this campus and a few others I've worked on are really great examples of that. And one of the things that we see is because this vehicle, it takes a little while to develop, it's a great opportunity to get students involved in. Most design projects, you got to get the thing done in a couple months and build it over the summer and before classes start. Here's a way, like we've seen here, we're most of the way through construction, starting September 2012 with the development. So it's allowed, in the first phase, actually, an app student was hired by PEPCO as an intern. They eventually came to work for the company and is now working as an engineer on this project. Right, it's on the second phase, which I think is a wonderful follow-up to what happened here. And I think there's more and more of that opportunity going forward. Another way to get kids involved is in this green resilience, and really, not only saving energy, wow, that's great, and that's what I do for a living, but boy, we really have to save the planet, right? We've heard all about that this morning, and I used to have this little tagline we use, saving the planet one building at a time. It really needs to be a portfolio at a time, an enterprise at a time. That's really where we need to get. And because of what's going on with the weather and all that stuff, we don't have to tell you about it. Green resilience is the key. And not just the campuses, but the communities. And with that, we want to extend
students not only being involved in their campuses and working with businesses and getting good jobs, that's all great, but there's a lot of local businesses, and this is a great example. Boone is sort of a classic college town. There's not much else here besides the university, but there's a lot of businesses that support the university. There's a lot, and the university is supported by those businesses in turn. So it's a great opportunity to do some outreach to those local businesses to be able to make them more energy efficient, reduce their carbon footprint, help them make that next sale, create positions for the students here to be able to go, or even internships, summer jobs, whatever it is, so they can stay close to where they're studying and learn valuable skills. One way to do that is to change policies. Here in North Carolina, there's like enabling PACE legislation, and that's an actual link. Hopefully these get posted. That's a link to pacenow.org. I don't have time to tell you about PACE, but that's basically taking long-term financing, applying it to commercial buildings, and allowing it to stay with the building. So that if you're going to flip a mall or an office building in 2 years, the asset, the financing stays with it. That's a game changer. I've been in this since '85. I've never seen anything like this. This is an accelerator to this market. On-bill financing, great, another great opportunity. It's a white paper from Bill Copperthorne at EDF. And my friend and colleague, Peter Kelly Detweiler, is going to be talking to you a little bit more tomorrow about enterprise-wide asset leveraging and PPAs. A lot of people think about the solar and wind PPAs, which are very common. There's other things you can do out there. CHP, ground source heat pumps. Have somebody else spend $1 million on the field. You buy the heating and the cooling effect. That's it. Thank you.
We have a few minutes. If we have any questions from the audience, the speakers. Yes, please.
Next to the man from Celtic Energy, the whole panel. Yes, y'all any set programs at your company that offer shadowing, or is it something that you do on the side? And that's for anybody on the panel. Are there shadowing programs that forth in your company that students can apply for?
So I think you're asking, does our company have shadowing programs in place?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we have the framework in place, and that we're just starting. Like I said, Grambling will be one of the first ones that we're working on at University of New Haven. We have 2 interns. We want to do that here in North Carolina. As soon as we start a new project, that's what we're going to do, and get with the environmental clubs, sustainability groups, and get them involved in the process from the beginning. And what we'd seen done before is, sort of train the kids in how the kiosks work that were in the lobbies of the buildings, but that doesn't really help understand the details of how the deal was put together and why certain things might have been thrown out that seemed like a good idea. But I'd be happy to answer any further questions about that afterwards.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other? Yes.
On chiller plant optimization, for existing plants, what type of payback time period do you see on optimization and when you install an optimization on a plant?
The shortest answer I can give you is roughly 2 to 5 years on projects that we're successful on. Obviously, we've looked at a lot many more projects than that have paybacks in the 5 to 10 year range, but 2 to 5 years tends to be a popular range for those we've sold. Average is probably in the 3.5 year range.
Yes.
Also a question for chiller plant optimization directed towards PEPCO, and that is with the water rates rising, especially out west, do you see the water consumption of the chiller plants being a part of the optimization process as well, and the utility costs of the chiller plant?
I didn't hear the second part of the question.
Is water going to be considered in chiller plant optimization in the total utility cost, not just electric?
I don't know the answer for the Midtown thermal plant, but I would assume it should be. I mean, if we're looking at the whole sustainability improvements of the whole plant, to the extent you can reduce your water, and especially where you have high water costs, it would be included in the economics. We typically, in our projects, do look at water costs and water conservation projects, and some places, high costs, you have very good paybacks.
Quick follow-up to that. We do a lot of work for the Governor's Energy Office of Nevada. Water's a bit of an issue out there, as you might imagine. And Lake Mead is at the lowest level it's been since it was filled in the 1930s. And they're starting to take another look at water. Water is cheap. It's almost free out there. But it's starting to change, and we're really starting to see an impact in it. And I think that mentality needs to spread across the country, because we may have water now, but 5 years ago here, it wasn't the case. It may be the case again in another 5 years. Yes.
Doing something REI or renewable energy initiative, and we're trying out a new system for water reduction. Appalachian State's REI, which is the student-operated thing, is working with our physical plant. We're actually working on a system we're going to try out next year that will reduce our water consumption in one of our chiller plants. So hopefully by next year we'll be able to share some of that.
Yes, Michael.
Quick on that optimization of chiller plants. You guys are doing large scale. I can see the payback on a huge scale. But most of our campuses have small, maybe 200, 500 ton chiller plants, or even small regional plants. Are you scaling it down where you can make those solutions happen in something that small?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. The question was, can these chiller plant optimization solutions scale down to the smaller, simpler plants? Maybe you have just 2 chillers. And the answer is absolutely yes. Of course, where the technologies really were driven were in the larger scale central utility plants, district cooling plants. So the technology has really been proven out there. But in fact, what we've been working on the last few years, how do we simplify the process of analyzing, developing, and implementing in smaller plants so that it is cost effective, so that we can do those 500 to 1,000 ton plants with just 2 chillers and still have a compelling payback. So absolutely yes. So think of it as a continuum, and as time goes on, it's reaching down further into the smaller, simpler plants and being cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jed. Appreciate it. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate in the Energy Summit. We know that everyone is busy. We're busy as well. But when we look around the United States, quite honestly, I haven't seen anything quite like what's happening at Appalachian State and within the UNC system. And I think it takes an awful lot of courage to face some of these challenges. The discussions with Duke Energy and others, it's fascinating to watch a transformation and the acceleration that's being born here. And at least for House, it's a true privilege to come in and participate, and I know it is for the rest of you guys. Thank you so much.
So, very quickly, David, I was going to introduce you when we started the panel, but I wasn't going to follow David over, so you're writing a dirty check. I owe you one. I don't know if you believe in serendipity, but when we went to the ELAB event, the very first person I met and the very first person David met was each other. And today, we're talking about the first zero energy home of their company being built on Appalachian. And we're thinking bigger than that. We're thinking of mixed use. We're thinking of zero energy dorms. And these are things we want to get throughout the system. We're not trying to keep it bottled up here. But I wanted to close this session and send us in a break. Last night I met the folks from NC Central, students. The guys in the red t-shirts, Ram Pride. And they came up to me. They they came up to me with their teacher and they said, we can't thank you enough. I said, you know, events like this, for us to bring our students to, and for it to be free, this just does not happen. And it happens because of our business partners and the folks here. So the gratitude that I felt from North Carolina Central and the Ram Pride.
Winston-Salem State.
Is it Winston-Salem State?
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, guys. The gratitude that I felt is really transferred to our business partners. They make this event possible and be free of charge. And so right now I'm going to send us into break, and I'm going to find my friends from Winston-Salem and buy them a cookie. But we have 15 minutes for break, and food and beverages are not allowed back in. Thanks. Welcome back. So much for the 15-minute break. We will make it up. So last year when Amory Lovins came here, the talk he gave was original content, talk he had never given before. You heard a company this morning say that being around this group of people has changed the course of their company. This morning David Orr woke up and had to write a new speech. This group of people, this effort that we are engaged in is disruptive. And when you have disruption, what do you do? That's right. And this doesn't, it happens through the 340 people. It happens through the 22 campuses. It happens through the 15 or so companies. It happens through the friends and alumni that we have. This is a disruptive bunch, and I hope you keep it up. So in keeping up with the theme of disruption, I want to introduce Lynn Roy and Karen Patch. Lynn, I have a hard time not still calling you with the State Energy Office. You now work with Diener, but your hat may have changed, but your dedication to what you do hasn't changed at all. And Karen Patch works with SAS, and she works in their educational practice. She's been involved over the years in developing some sustainability tools that I think we're going to be breathing new life into in the coming years. But this morning, they're here to go through a lot of the data and do a live demonstration of some really exciting products and processes that we're going to be making available to each of you. So I want to get out of the way, and I want to introduce my good friends, Lynn and Karen. Thanks.
Thank you, Jed. Here I am behind a microphone and a podium again, but I'll manage. I'll live with it. A little bit different presentation this time. Usually I have a whole bunch of slides and graphs and things like that, and we're going to do it a little bit differently. You have all heard of the Campus Conservation Network. Everybody has told you, here's the top 10. I went out and got this list off the top 10 so you can see where people fall. Let's give a hand for our North Carolina universities, because Wake Forest is up there too. I became aware of this list and the website from the energy manager that works with Durham County and City. One person does both, Tobin Freed. Some of you may remember Tobin. She's been in the energy field for many, many years. And she was the one that came back and told me about this. So your work is getting noticed outside of the academic arena. So congratulations and thank you.
That's an alphabetical order, not ranking order.
That's, actually they said that was in numerical or in medical order when I went out and pulled it. We'll get rid of it real quick. The Utility Savings Initiative is now in the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and we're a part of DEECS, Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, as you can see across the bottom, not to be confused with Wake Forest University. The move into Deeks was very good for our program. We used to come around and visit you and we talk energy. Being a part of Deeks, we can talk about a lot more now. We have a lot more services that we can bring to you in the area of sustainability. And I wanted to mention this one in particular, the Environmental Stewardship Initiative. It is really a recognition program. As you can see, 142 member sites. Highest ranking is a steward. Then you've got a rising steward and a partner. All across the state, mostly private entities, a lot of nonprofits. When we come down, as far as government people involved, not so many. When we come down to higher education institutions, one. Duke University. So I'd love to see you talk to our UC people, and we'll get the people that run this program out onto your campuses. I'd love to see UNC, at least 4 or 5 of you sign up for it. I'd love to see all 17 institutions on this list. It's a great program. A lot of peer-to-peer exchanges. You can see what they've done with their reported savings. Great fit for you, great extension beyond just energy. And our group now can provide, we've got probably the greatest composting guru in the state, Brian Rosa. He lives, breathes composting. Wonderful guy. We've also got recycling and the other pieces of Deeks. Recycling. They actually have small amounts of grant money to help with some of these programs. So while we usually come with a blank or an empty checkbook, they have some money. So please, when you talk to our group, when you talk to Lynn Martin out here in the western part of the state, Reed Conway is no longer with us. I train the boy and he goes off and becomes the deputy director of the Tennessee Energy Office. So we've lost Reed Conway, but Lynn will give you good service out here, and then in the Raleigh area we'll all work with you. So please, look at this. It's a great way to broaden just out of energy and go into environmental stewardship. Key performance indicators. You've been hearing the numbers. Mine are a little bit different. I have been working with NC State since last October. And we've been going back and forth trying out to figure out how to properly account for and show the efficiencies of their new cogeneration plant, which they bought online. They hadn't accounted for it at all in the initial report, which was the numbers that you have been hearing all this session. We have it taken care of now. We know how to do the accounting. And the reason for this is that it's different is Chapel Hill does have a wonderful cogen plant, but they sell their energy to the campus. So their efficiencies do not get counted into the Chapel Hill numbers. Their cogen plant is a utility provider, whereas on the NC State campus, the cogen plant is within the confines and their efficiencies do impact their report. So let me tell you that cogen works. When we account for it properly, it will help pay for itself. If you have any questions, I know Jack Colby is here, would love to talk to you about it. For larger campuses, even for some smaller ones, cogen does work and can provide real benefits to your campus. Data collection and analysis. That's what I'm supposed to talk about. Well, it's core to what we're doing. We don't know whether we're being successful if we don't track our energy consumption and cost. So, right now, all of the universities universities, in fact, anyone that has a statutory requirement to send us their consumption and cost information, does it using an Excel spreadsheet, and we dump it into an Access database. Very inefficient, extremely inefficient. Manual input into the Excel spreadsheet, we transfer the data over into the Access database manually. Horribly inefficient, horribly inefficient. Not only that, but when we want to try and do all the pretty graphs that you get to post on the website for Appalachian, or for the Appalachian Energy Summit, many of you know Keith Bradshaw, he's our data analyst. He'll spend 2 days putting all those graphs together. Not a good use of his time. So we need to change this. Number one, annual data doesn't give you anything to work with in order to control your energy consumption, your patterns, your trends, and your costs. We have to look at it in a more granular fashion. So, put together a working group. I've got 2 universities, UNCGA, 2 state agencies, 2 K-12 schools plus the Department of Public Instruction, the North Carolina Community College System Office, all come together, people from IT and people from purchasing. And we're looking at what is out there. So the first thing we did was to create an RFI, open house with questions. We wanted everybody to say what they wanted in the system and put it in question form. We got 7 responses back from the private sector, where most of them would do almost everything that we wanted. So our next step is to go out and try and find out, well, how much is this going to cost? We want all of that information to be done in time for us to go to the General Assembly in January for the long session and say, if you want us to have a statewide data collection system for energy, you're going to have to allocate this much money up front so that we can set it up, and then this much money going forward each year to maintain it. And we'll get the results. We'll see whether or not the legislature wants to fund it. Now, what all of these institutions are competing against is Portfolio Manager, EPA's Portfolio Manager program. That is a free program. Hard to beat free. But about all it is a database. A way to use it, the information when you try and pull it out and do any analysis of the data is very poor, very weak. We just applied for a DOE competitive grant to go ahead and put together a collaborative of utility providers, not only electric companies, gas companies, electricities, co-ops, water authorities, everybody that provides utilities into the public sector. And we're going to try and create a standard format for them to move data automatically on your behalf. You'll have to sign a release form. But automatically, once a month, your utility data will go into Portfolio Manager. No more manual data entry. For some of the larger institutions, doesn't provide much benefit because you've already got data collection schemes in place. But for a lot of the smaller institutions, community colleges especially, this can be huge. The biggest complaint I can see and hear is entering that data. So we've applied for the grant. We have letters of support from EPA, from Duke Power, several of the electricities, gas companies, the co-ops. So we have, and plus several of the agencies, universities have signed up to be guinea pigs to make this work. So we have a very strong application. Hopefully we'll see that grant come to pass. So, talking about analytics, Jed put me together with Karen, and she previewed what we're going to show you. And Keith was in the room with me, and it probably took me the first time I put your scattergrams together that's in our annual reports, it probably took me a day to figure out how to get that set up properly in Excel. This was done in the demo in about 45 seconds. Keith saw that and said, I want one. You've got one. So now we're going to turn it over to Karen, and we're going to go through and demonstrate what this is using your live, real data. So you'll see your graphs pop up, and if you'll navigate, please, Karen.
Good morning. First, I want to say thank you very much to be invited here by Jed, the team. And I actually live up here a lot because I have a daughter who is at App State, so Mountaineer mom, so I'm proud Mountaineer mom. So it's exciting to be up here again. Let me just go into this. We timed out, so I have to log back in. I went a little smoother this one.
Okay, one of the things that we have never shown, but we went ahead and put this up, is the energy unit pricing by university. And this is showing who pays the most for what you're buying. Has nothing to do with efficiency, doesn't show any of those types of things. This is just purely what you are paying for your utilities. So now, one of the nice things is we've got the cost per million BTU by university down below, and then the breakdown on the bar chart shows the contribution of each utility type: electricity, gas, oil, propane, coal in some instances. So now what we just got by highlighting Appalachian, you come down, you can see where Appalachian is on the chart. You actually highlighted your bar chart because we're linked on the two charts. Behind this is a table, or are we going to demonstrate the tables on another one?
Oh, sure. The other thing to mention is that we can compare universities. So if you've got some particular universities that you wanted to compare, and then you want to compare yourself to where you are as a total. I was just saying, if you select on the left, you can, or yeah, on your left, you can compare yourself to the UNC total to see where you are from an energy unit pricing perspective.
And then we can select the year as well. Right now we're looking at 12-13. Very easy to come over and select a prior year. So very nice tool, and it's going to be available to you. on to the next one. Now this is one that you see every year for every university. Cost per million BTU, cost per million BTU percent change, BTU per gross square foot, BTU per gross square foot percent change. Now this is the summary for all universities. If you look, for those that can't see, all across this top portion here is tabs for every university. So you can look at the summary for all universities, or you can select your own university and see exactly where you're performing.
This is Winston-Salem State for you guys out there.
And then again, the table data is available behind this. So very quickly, I mean, these things come up and it's extremely easy.
You can export the data from any of the graphs if you want to be able to use it for your own analysis.
This is where you can forecast. So we've got data out to 2012-13. So from there on out, we can forecast. And it gives, based on the trending, it gives a high and a low trend as well as the midpoint on your trend. So we can actually trend and see where we're going. And this is the cost per million BTU. You can see that we started off down around $12, $11, $12 per million BTU. We are currently just under $20. Mid-range forecast will be upwards of $20+ and the high, which I hope we don't get to. So if you want to know, I mean, you know, $20.90, and then the high was, what was the high one there? $28.10. I hope none of us get there, but this is a nice tool, and we have just touched the surface for the trending. We could spend the rest of the day going into all of the analytics that can make up all of the trending that you can do on this graph. The reason we're showing this to you is very easy to import or to gain access to our data, hopefully monthly data going forward, if it's in Portfolio Manager, and access it with Visual Analytics. And then each of you can do what right now Keith Bradshaw is doing for you, but you can do it in the ways that suits your university and you best. Now we're going to show them how to do it, right?
Yeah, this is just an example. I don't know how much time we have, so I want to be cognizant of that. I don't want to stand between everybody and lunch, but essentially this is just basically a chart and a table and then some filters across the top. And to be able to build this very quickly, Glenn talked about being able to edit this, and this is something that can be done very quickly and easily. So here I've got the report that we already have. And this is the section that I'm going to build really quickly, hopefully. So basically, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just so that what you're looking at is the distribution of costs on your campus among your various utilities, electric, gas, oil, water. So I hope you're noticing drag and drop, the type of chart you want, pie chart, you drag and drop it. And then you start filling in by drag and drop with your data tables.
Exactly. So I just put in a table, a pie chart, and a couple of filters. And so the data that Len mentioned, I'm going to come over here and pick the data set that I want to work with. Energy summary. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to make the filter on the top be the universities. And then I want to look at, let's see, we're going to put the energy type over here. And we want to look at the cost. And we want to filter our pie chart by the year. So I'm just going to put that right there. That's going to be my drop-down filter. So now I can see all the different years. So now if I pick a year, let's pick 2012. I haven't linked anything yet, so I'm going to do a few more things. I'm going to go in and put the energy type here, the cost, and I'll put the year across the top, and the institution. And so now all I have to do is link everything together, all of the different objects in the report.
As you saw, the chart was filling in with its own labels.
And then now I want to make this so you can see the whole chart. Okay, so now I can go in and say I want to look at UNC total, and it's just going to filter UNC total. Maybe you want to put the year across this way. Let's just drag that here. Okay, that's a little better. So now I'm just looking at UNC total. I can go in and just look at Appalachian State. And you notice it's filtering not only the table, but it's also filtering the pie chart. And because you can really only show a pie chart, you want to look at it yearly, I can then go in and subset it by year, and it's not going to change a whole lot over time, but there we go. And what it's done here, and I'm not going to go because of time, but there's little nuances that you can do within the report, but you saw, you know, a couple minutes, you can easily build a report for yourself to be able to visualize this to the university. And so we wanted to show you what's already out there, what we've already built. And I'm going to have to relaunch because we timed out.
While she's doing that, could you review again the status of the availability of this?
Yeah, I'll let Jed take that one.
I knew that question.
But energy is not available, but it's already on the UNCGA website,
The technology is, the innovation.
which is the next thing we're going to show you.
We'll take that question at the end, and lots of people will wonder. Yes.
So this is the UNCGA website, and we worked very closely with them on their dashboarding component of this, and parts of visual analytics, which is the technology that you just saw, are being used to report on enrollment, student success, and degrees, and they're actually getting ready to put one out on facilities usage. So all that data that all the system-wide universities are sending up to UNC General Administration are getting populated out here, so you can actually go out to their website, and then if you want to get the full visual analytics experience, you click on that link up there, and it takes you into the reports, and the reports are interactive. Again, the idea is self-service for the end user, whether you're a researcher, or you're a legislator, or you're a chancellor, or a dean, just being able to get the data that you need to be able to get the information out. This is, again, you see the similar things. They've got the button bars across the top for all of the schools in the system. We just wanted to go to this last page because I know we're running out of time, but the idea of build your own. So this isn't where I was just building a report a moment ago, but But this is where you could go for your constituents, where you're building a report that allows them to then make choices in the report and be able to view the information that they need. So for example, because I'm partial to App State, I went to Carolina, but I'm partial to App State now. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to choose App State. I want to look at the undergrads. I want to look at, say, the past 10 years. And then we want to look at maybe in-state. So you can quickly get to the information that you need by making these choices in the report.
And you can see where this is enrollment, you can see where you can select, if it was energy-based, you could select universities, similar to what was there. Then you can come back and look at whether you want to look at cost, BTUs, whatever it is, and you'll have those selection mechanisms. This is available to you right now if you go out to the UNCGA website, the home web page, and they have the data dashboard for enrollment, and you can look at this, and you can play with this. It's not going to let you foul it up. So you can see what visual analytics can do, and hopefully you're capable in your mind of translating that into, all right, I'm looking at enrollment, but energy data is no, it's just numbers grouped by different classifications, the same as your enrollment data is. So that is kind of what we have. We try to, whet your appetite. Please go out to this website and look at it. And so we haven't been standing still. We've been looking at trying to get you to monthly data, eliminate your the task of manually entering the data to have it sent to our office, and then to give you a powerful tool to be able to analyze that data once you have it available to you. So now, questions, and I think they want to know when.
First off, I come from the IT world, and doing a live demo in front of 400 people, that's a high wire act, folks, so. Well, these guys must be confident in what they have, or they wouldn't have tried it, so. What comes across to me is the ease of use, and I'm kind of worried about Keith's job right now, personally. I'm just kidding. But to answer the question about the energy data and how these tools will be made available to you, the other thing I remember from being in the IT industry is the worst thing that can happen is for a marketing person, me, to be standing up and making technology promises that our IT people have to keep, but I'm going to plow ahead anyway. So this is an online tool, correct? We have the energy data. You guys submit from the UNC system. We have all the energy data that gets submitted to Lynn's office. And right now, I urge you to go to the Energy Summit website. And Keith and Lynn and his crew have put together lots and lots of tables and graphs and charts. So there's already a lot of comparative information. There's already charts that you can take back to your campus and tell your bosses and say, look, these are our energy savings. And you might say, this is how we're better than this group of campuses, or maybe you can say, this is how we can do better. So a lot of that is available now. Now, as we said earlier, SAS makes their tools, including this tool, and if I'm wrong, let me know, but this tool is part of what's available in the UNC system, right? The software, so if you are a UNC campus, SAS generously donates this software to your campus. We are in the process of building a server to house this capability on our campus, and because it's a web-based tool, you'll be able to come and look at it via the web. And so, I don't know if it'll be a week, I don't know if it'll be a month, but we will email each of you to let you know that that capability is up and live. Now, the other thing Lynn said is, imagine if we get to a point where instead of getting yearly data, now it's monthly. By building, real time, dare I say. So the capabilities to put this type of analytic power in your hands is there, and we owe that thanks to companies like SAS that see the value of education and support North Carolina, and people with hard work and dedication like Keith and Lynn. So to answer your question, it's coming soon. You guys will be the first to know, and thanks much. Any other questions?
And actually, the North Carolina Community Colleges system is we're in the process of getting, like we did for UNCGA, we're in the process of doing the same thing, so getting out all of the student type data as well.
I've been working on a similar project with local governments in the rural and Harris County agreements, and have been manually collecting this data from them with the goal of inspiring competition between them. Because residential experience indicates that the short neighborhood, if they're maybe using less, everybody goes down. So will this ultimately roll out to local
I don't know. I have to work with the governmental group at SAS to see where we can take this. But please look up, find Lynn Martin. He's not hard to find. He stands head and shoulders above me, and he serves your area for our group, and he will work with you on your data collection efforts and trying to, put some analysis together. We'll get Keith Bradshaw down there with you. We'll assist you with your endeavor on that. So you're not in alone. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Last question.
Where does the assumption come from regarding the uncertainty about price in the future? What data drove the central line
On the projection?
Yeah, basically there's a component to visual analytics that is not just the reporting, it's an analytics component where you can do forecasting, correlation analysis, word mapping, decision trees, all that. So what we did was we just took the historical data for the price per MMBTU and put it into the forecast and got that. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Lunchtime, we got.
We got one more. So I'd like to bring in my colleague Jeff Ramsdale, who's going to talk about the working group sessions and give you some counsel on how to be engaged in that, and also talk about our very important poster competition that highlights our students' work.